Do you ever get quiet in the presence of the Lord and just listen to Him and concentrate on Him? If you do, I guess like I've found, it's not always easy. Good morning. Thank you for being with me today. And I want you to turn to 1 Thessalonians 4 verse 11. And I'm going to read this from King James Version, because it says something here that I don't quite find in my New International Version. Paul says to us that you study to be quiet and to do your own business and to work with your own hands as we commanded you, that you may walk honestly toward them that are without, and that you may lack nothing. Let me ask you, have you as a Christian ever studied to be quiet? Have you ever really sat down alone with the Lord and in His presence and looked to Him and listened to Him and really concentrated on Him for a period of time just for Him to speak to you? Now, when I got this challenge, I thought, well, I can't give it to the people until I've tried it myself. So I thought, well, that's fine. I'll try it. 15 minutes alone with the Lord sounds good. So I went out, and we've just got a deck at the back of our house, which is very quiet. So I went out there, and I tried. Do you know what happened? I'd hardly got quiet and looked to the Lord, then my head started. And I started thinking of this and thinking of this and thinking of this, and my mind was running in every direction. And friend, I wasn't quiet. I really wasn't. I was in a terrible state. My head was running all over the place. My body was quiet. And if you'd seen me, I was on a chaise, leaning back. You say, boy, Richard's quiet. No, he wasn't. His head was making terrible noises. So I began to learn. And I'm still learning. And I've still got a lot to learn. The next thing I learned was the second week I was out there on the Tuesday. And I've been out 1 minute. And fellows working on the lot next door put on their radio. And bless me soul, didn't they have rock music? Have you ever tried to get quiet with the Lord with a background of rock music? I'll tell you a secret. It's not easy. In fact, I'll tell you a second secret. It is absolutely impossible. And I was struggling. But what I found was this. During that time quietly with the Lord, two things happened. One day I fell asleep. I had to apologize to Him for that, but at least I got the peace. Isn't that awful, though? You decide to go into the presence of the Lord to listen to Him. The next thing is you're asleep. But I found something else. It was not when I was listening to the Lord that He spoke to me. It was after I'd listened that the thoughts began to come. And I knew that a lot of those thoughts were from the Lord. I mean, they just poured into my mind. And that's not my mind. I know when it's the Lord. He was as clear as a bell, thought upon thought upon thought. And what I'm learning is, the more I get quiet, then I can hear what He's saying afterwards. Now, that just happens to be me. And you may find something different. But the Bible says study to be quiet. And I think it says study to be quiet for this reason. We live in a generation of noise. Isn't it true? I wonder how many of you, especially if you live alone, as soon as you walk in the house, you put something on. You either put on the television or you put on some music, but you put on some sound. Have you ever thought just to be quiet and recognize that Jesus was already there in the apartment, in the house, before you walked in? Then some of the younger people do like a lot of loud noise, don't they? They love their music so that it really rocks the house. And they tell us that that's when you hear the music properly. Well, maybe they do. And sometimes I've had music louder than others. But really, when the whole building's rocking, I get the feeling it's a little too loud. But sounds are at us all the time. But Paul says more than this. Back to verse 11. He says, study to be quiet and to do your own business. So he says, study to be quiet, but go on with life. He's not saying sort of exclude yourself. He's not saying go and live in the mountains for 3 months. He says, study to be quiet and do your own business. Keep working, but studying to be quiet. Now that's important. Every so often you come up against a Christian who thinks the Christian thing is to escape. That's not what Paul's saying. Paul's saying be involved. You should be involved. You are the light of the world. You're the salt of the earth. how are you going to be salt and light unless you're involved with other people? Do your own business. Do your own work. Reach out loving hands. That's your calling, friend. But with that, study to be quiet. He then says, and to work with your own hands as we commanded you. So if you're someone who's a blue-collar worker, a typist, a homemaker or housewife or whatever you are these days, you are working with your own hands. That is commendable to God. And there are lots of different callings in life. Also, some of you listening to my voice, you're called to work with your heads. You've got to think out problems. And I know this now, and I couldn't have told you this 2 weeks ago. If you will learn to study to be quiet in the presence of God, your head will do a lot better in its thinking than it has before. Because in that quietness with the Lord, you learn to listen to Him, but you also learn to concentrate. And I guess one thing I've struggled with is that concentration. Maybe you don't. Maybe you've got super concentration. If you have, the Lord bless you. I think it's a gift from Him. But if you have a problem to concentrate, study to be quiet, and things will begin to happen. That you may walk honestly toward them that are outside the church, to them that are without, that you may walk honestly toward them that are outside the church. In other words, from that time of quietness, there's going to be an effect on those around you who are not Christians. Have you ever thought about that? So not only is your work affected, but your walk is affected. And I still believe that is Christian testimony. I think Christian testimony is who we are and how we live. The last part is what we say. But it's the life. It's the life that must show Jesus. It's the life that must reach out loving hands. It's the life that people see and decide whether it's for real or not. And he says we are to walk honestly toward them that are outside the church, that you may have lack of nothing. So he says, not only do you find that your work is better, not only is your walk improved, but you will find provision, wealth. So you've got your work, your walk, your wealth are all affected by being quiet. You say, just a minute, Richard. I know people who are quiet who are not wealthy. That's nothing. You may meet people who are wealthy who are not quiet. But also you'll find this. If you find someone who's got a lot of money and has found the real truth of quietness, you'll find a wealthy person who's content. Because many people who have wealth are also unhappy. They've got it, but they've lost life. That's not what God's saying. God says, I want your walk, your work, and your wealth all to be affected by quietness. And I think that as Christians, we've missed this. We have been so busy flying here, doing this, doing that. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing the Lord's work. Yes? Oh, yes. How many jobs you got? I got 16 in the church. I faced 30 different committees. Friend, you've lost it. You're so busy doing that you're not spending time in his presence. He desires to have us fellowshipping with us. He wants to be alone with us. He wants to get to know us. That's the key of Christian living. And it's true for you and it's true for me. Study to be quiet. And what I'd like you to do, I really would, because this would be fun. As you study to be quiet, when you find the result after 1 week, would you write me a short note? I don't want 16 pages. Just write me a short note and tell me your experiences of quietness. Because I think you're going to have some fun. I did. I think it's good to laugh at ourselves. I think if there's anything we lack in the United States, it's the ability to laugh at ourselves. But can't we laugh at ourselves? When I studied to be quiet, I laughed because I had such silly struggles. One other thing. You need to know this. If you've got sin in your life, you're not going to be quiet. You say, why not? Because sin makes the biggest noise of anything. I told you just now that my thoughts just drove me crazy. But if you've got a deliberate sin and you're a Christian, when you sit down to be quiet, that is going to make such a noise in your life, in your ear, in your feelings. You are never going to be quiet. until you go to the Lord your God and confess your sin. So therefore, if you do have sin, confess it quickly, get it straightened out. Friend, get that right now. What I have found, and what a lot of other Christians have found in our ministry, because I'm listening to them, as they've grown in the Holy Spirit, they become much more sensitive of sin much more quickly. In the good old days that have left it, now they confess it, they get it cleaned up, they get it put right, and they do it quickly so that they can be clean in the sight of God. That's good. But the biggest noise in life is sin. If you know what is right and you're doing what is wrong, you're going to have such a noise thumping through your head and through your soul and through your spirit that you're never going to be quiet. And God says, I want you to study to be quiet. And it's going to take study and it's going to take effort. If you're not into effort, you're not going to make this. I know it. Now don't forget, I quoted Charles Stanley when I said 15 minutes. You may say, well, Richard, I've managed 5. Well, that's nice. But see if you can extend it. Somebody said to me, I managed 3 minutes. Well, that wasn't bad either. But just stay there. Picture Jesus. Listen to Jesus. Even read the word before you start so that you've got something to work on, so that those other thoughts don't get around you. You say, well, it's never quiet in my house. Well, go in a room and say to the rest of the family, excuse me, I just want to be quiet for 15 minutes, and would you just leave me alone? If they don't, pray for them, because they got a problem. Also, if your thoughts run away, have a piece of paper, jot down what it was, so that you just get it off your mind. Study to be quiet.